Hey, it's Alana here. A quick announcement before we jump into today's episode. I'm really excited to announce that the doors to Ignite Podcasting for Changemakers are open again. Ignite is an 8-week guided program specifically designed to support and guide you as you step behind the podcasting mic and beam your message out to the world. If you're wanting to start your own podcast, head across to alanahelbig.com/ignite or click the link in the show notes to find out more. Doors are only open for a limited time. Okay, on to the show.
When I really think when you come to terms with the fact that, but I could die tomorrow and this is our dream. So, what have we got to lose? We can't take it with us anyway. You cannot take it with you. You take nothing with you. All you leave behind is the state that you've left the world in. How much have you impacted the world? How much time have you given to the people that you love? How much have you invested in the things that you're passionate about? How much joy have you had in your days? They became what mattered, and that mattered more than stuff or accumulating or identity or businesses or ego. It became greater than us.
A couple of weeks back, my partner Clayton and I took an adventure in Walter the Campervan to the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia. Frances Murray and her partner Tyler and her 2 young children Olive and Jude welcomed us onto their newly established permaculture farm in the Noosa Hinterland region for a look around and a chat about their choice to live a simple life. This interview was recorded in Franny's tiny off-grid house, nestled in the living area on comfy armchairs, surrounded by the sound of birds, which you can probably hear in the background, in one direction overlooking the treetops running along their natural creek, and in the other direction overlooking their vegetable garden. I could literally feel my whole body unwinding as I relaxed into the surrounds and listened to the passion and wisdom that poured out of Franny. There is so much we cover in this interview, but as I delved into Franny's untangling journey, these were the highlights for me. Contemplating the inevitability of death as an inspiration for chasing your dreams, redefining success based on how much joy and love you experience in your day, not by how much money you earn, things you acquire, or your job title, and following the inner pull above all else, even when it means leaving your safe job, moving to a vacant block with 2 young children, and living without running water, electricity, or a home for months at one of the hottest times of the year. Franny shares the real truth of their story, the why behind what they do, and powerful insights to get you thinking differently about the way we humans do life. And on this day, when the interview goes live, it's actually Franny's birthday, so join me in wishing her a magical day. Happy birthday, Franny. I'm Alana Helbig, and you're listening to Untangled. We're sitting here at your farm in Noosa Hinterland. Is that the region?
It's the Noosa Hinterland, yeah.
You've taken us, me and my partner Clayton, for a little bit of a tour around the property, but do you want to just tell us a little bit about the land, the size of it, why you chose this particular area?
We're on 12 acres here. When we decided that we were looking for a block where we could set up this kind of off-grid lifestyle, we didn't want something that was too big because we wanted it to be manageable. So 12 acres was a really good size. We were looking between Gympie to the north and Ballina to the south, so anywhere in between. We were trying to stay within a subtropical climate because that suited the type of things that we wanted to grow and the type of lifestyle that we wanted to have, I guess. We needed good rainfall. So we really wanted to be a part of a like-minded community where there were people like us, but I didn't want to go into a sort of a rough area. We have 2 kids and I wanted them to be in a good area. I wanted them to be around like-minded people, but not druggy, alternative people, but just sort of people who are more down to earth. So community was important. and also for us to feel supported and to feel like the types of things that we were passionate about, like not spraying the creek with chemicals, that belief system would also be within the community. Obviously you can't find anyone that's perfect, and they're always going to be conventional farmers and things like that. But, that there was an element through there. So that was a factor. I think that when we were designing the house and the way that I wanted to live in the house, it was that I wanted the deck to go out and to be a part of the veggie garden. Like, I just wanted this to be really like a shelter from the elements, but I wanted our life to be on the ground, our hands in the soil, feeling the seasons. But this was just kind of like a mandatory thing for when the really hot days or the really cold days. Or I didn't want to lose that connection. I didn't want to have this brick house on a slab and just to be totally disconnected and spend our whole life inside. I wanted the house to flow outside and for it to be small enough that we had to go outside, because if it's too big we just stay inside. There's 4 of us that live here, and you instinctively need to roam and need space, so then you do go outside. I guess another really big factor was affordability. The biggest thing was to not go into a huge amount of debt and both have to go off to work every day, and then what's the point? We might as well be living in the suburbs. So we just stumbled across this block. So my littlest one, Jude, was probably 2 months old, and Olive was 3, and Tyler had done his permaculture design certificate up here in Kinkin, and we looked at another property down the road, which was really good. We'd been traipsing through like head-high grass, Jude in the baby carrier, exploring these places, and the agent had said to me, look, the best block really is this one, but it's sort of hard to tell. But he'd grown up in the area and he'd fished in this creek, and so we pulled in the gate. We couldn't get in because we had no key, and it was so overgrown that I couldn't get out of the car with the kids. It was like well above my head.
It was overgrown with lantana, right?
Yeah, lantana, like really thick grass, guavas, so many guavas, and really we couldn't even see. So Tyler got outside, I hacked his way through, and I remember he got back in the car and he was like, I think it's actually okay. He said, oh, there's a shed on it. And I said, okay, like that's good. And he's like, yeah, but it's got some rubbish in it. I think they're beer drinkers, probably. And so we might need to clean that out. So I'm imagining straight away in my head, we'll walk around with some garbage bags, with some cans. And he's like, we'd probably need a skip bin. I was thinking, sweet Jesus, a skip bin? How much rubbish is in this shed? Anyway, I really was not prepared for it. So we went home, we looked it up online, and we saw that it had a creek. We pulled up the contour map and we were like, yeah, like the lay of the land's pretty good. And so we thought, well, we'll just go for it. And we didn't know. We could have started clearing and it just been a sea of car wrecks or a chemical dump, or we really didn't know. But we just took a risk and bought it. And Tyler was right, we needed 3 skip bins to clean out the rubbish out of the shed. Multiple car wrecks. Yeah. But we're slowly getting there. Yeah. It's a work in progress.
It's hard to imagine when you say it was fully covered, because I can see all of the ground here now. Yeah. And I remember the day that we did the most clearing, and really, when I say clearing, you imagine like bulldozers and dirt everywhere. But we did it with a big tractor and in a really gentle way. And as he just like pushed the lantana out of the way and I could see the ground, I remember I was just so grateful. I just thought, thank you. Like, we have been looked after. This is more than I could have ever hoped for. I was following you on Instagram when that process of clearing it, and the moment when you realised, we can actually do something with this land. Do you want to just take us through the process of getting the land to the point where you could put a house on it? What was that like?
Initially, we'd come up on weekends, and we were not campers. Like, we did not even own a tent. And Jude, when we started camping, was just 3 months old. So we'd come up every weekend that we could. We were also renovating like 100-year-old Queenslander on our old property to try and get it ready for sale, because we couldn't move here until we had sold that. So poor Tyler, he was working like 50, 60-hour weeks, renovating there at night, and we're trying to come up here on the weekends with the babies, camping. So initially there's just like a flat spot when you pull in the gate. So Tyler whippersnipped that so that we could actually put down a tent. We were here and we started camping, and we got his little tractor. He only has a small tractor, brought up on a truck, and we started trying to clear it by hand and with the small tractor. And probably it was about 2 or 3 months of doing that, and we were like, oh, this is a really long process. His tractor kept breaking down and it just wasn't an option. So I found a great guy who could come in with a big tractor, and in one day he cleared about 6 acres. It was so good. I can't even tell you. So we were still camping. and trying to sell our house in the south. Because our intention was sell that property, we'll keep renting somewhere, because Tyler's mum actually has terminal cancer. We didn't even really think that we could move. We thought, we'll stay here and sort of see things out there. But Tyler was working so much and so hard that we really weren't spending any time with them anyway. And I remember the day we were driving back from here and we started talking and we said, well, would it be crazy to just go there? Like, without a house and with a tent and just actually move? Like, what if we didn't have to drive home on this Sunday? What if we actually just went? And that started the mind ticking that maybe that is something that we could do, as ludicrous as that sounded. We also thought, well, that would give Tyler time because it would greatly reduce our debt, so he wouldn't have to work as much, and we would have time that when he did see his mum and his family, he would have quality time versus like 15 minutes once a week, as he kind of rushed in and out in his effort to just pay the bills and keep a roof over our head. And I think also being faced with her terminal diagnosis and the realities of life, that it could be over at any minute, it was like, how much longer can we put our dream off for? So we decided that we were just going to come. So we sold the place sold relatively easily, really, which was a huge blessing. We had nothing here. They're just an overgrown, falling down shed. That's it.
There was no electricity or running water or anything like that, was there?
Nothing. So imagine literally just moving out into a paddock. That's what we did. So we packed everything up into the shipping container, and I came a few days earlier. Tyler had to finish up at work, and I stayed in a motel with the kids because I wasn't there yet. By this stage, Jude I think was 8 months old and Olive was 3. We packed everything into a shipping container, and we had a canvas tent that we'd bought, and I'd done a lot of research. I was like, people totally can live in canvas tents, and this is a real thing. We can do this. And my brother kept saying to me, Franny, you just need to sort out your water. And I was thinking, oh yeah, that'll be fine. Like, we'll just get there and we'll order some tanks, that will be fine. We'll connect one to the shed, we'll have water. I remember the day we pulled up onto the vacant block, and we were like, we're home. We actually have nowhere to go. We have no house. We have nowhere to run away to. So we're here. We've literally moved into a paddock. We had 30 litres of water. It was the very beginning of December, so it was like the first or second day of summer, and it was a really hot summer, and that was it. Traveller had died on Mount Warning in a tent. They were camping at the top of the tent, and they'd been hit by lightning. And I looked at the forecast, and it was just like storm, 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 storm. And I said to Tyler, I think there's just a line like this. I feel a lot of fear about this, and I think maybe we should get a caravan. At least then, I just think that we need to. So I got on Gumtree, found a caravan. The next morning, like 7 o'clock in the morning, I was there, and they delivered it for us. It's a cheap little old caravan. It's older than me, but I was like, okay, it's got like 2 bunks, double bed, like we'll be okay.
Yeah.
So
you've still got it now. It's out there, right?
Yeah, we've still got it now. It's now a woofing caravan. Hope I never have to live in it again. And I am really grateful for it, but...
Do you look at it now? Does it give you nightmares when you look at it? Or is it like you look at it with fond memories of that time?
No, I definitely don't. I look at it and feel a sense of like anxiety. I really do, even when I'm in there. And for a while I was thinking, maybe we could have a caravan. We could be that family that like goes, on caravan trips. But no,
it's done.
Yeah, really great woofer accommodation, but I just don't want to go back to that space. That was a challenging time. So we went to buy water tanks, and they said, the first delivery's the mid-January. Because it was Christmas, and I'm a really organised person, and I just hadn't even factored that in. So then we're faced with the reality of we're going to have no water for 6 weeks, and our off-grid solar power system wouldn't be ready for 2 months. So we were faced with December and January, no water and no power. So that means like no lights, like nothing.
And being, not to mention, in a caravan in like the hottest ever part of the year.
Yeah, like 38 degrees. Yeah, and no fan.
Yeah.
We can't turn on the fan while Jude's sleeping. He is our baby. So that was a really difficult time. We did get a couple of 1,000-litre water tanks, which was really handy. Hooked them up to the shed. Tyler fixed all the guttering, and we had water. I remember the first time it rained, I was so relieved because we were rationing water. We were bathing down in the creek. Tyler didn't have a 4-wheel drive at that point, so we were carrying up 20 litres of water, and that's about 500 metres probably, in buckets, and that was how we could do our washing. A neighbour let us refill our 20 litre drum of water for drinking water.
Yeah. I'm going to ask as well, because everyone's wondering, where did you go to the toilet?
Oh, that's actually a really easy one. Honestly, that was probably the least of our worries. So we just had a trusty spade. So we would just dig a hole every time. Yeah, to be honest, most people think that's probably the biggest thing, but that was the least of our worries. And that actually created an amazing connection to your health, because digging a hole every time you need to go to the toilet, you're really connected with what you're eating and how your body is, and you're not just flushing it down the toilet and forgetting about it. So I would say that was actually a really amazing experience, and really a part of that whole experience that I'm really grateful for. That was the least of my worries.
What was your biggest fear or your biggest worry at that time?
The heat. Yeah, I was actually really worried that something would happen to one of the kids. A few weeks in, my dad lent us his generator, which was amazing, but we were really careful with it. So we'd run it whenever Jude needed to have a daytime sleep with a fan, and just a couple of nights that were too hot. Otherwise, we spent most of the time at the creek, the lake, or the beach over that summer. So
just tell us a little bit about why this style of living. Where did the original idea come from?
In 2011, we went to Europe. It was before we had kids, and we decided to do some woofing, and it really wasn't because we were interested in growing our own food. I guess we can't, not really. It was more just because we were cheap, and we thought it would be a really good way to get to know the locals. Yeah. And we ended up on an organic farm in Mallorca in Spain. It was life-changing. The guy lived really simply. His house was really simple, and he had this little market garden, and we worked in it every day, and it just changed our life. To see his way of life, the peace and calm and ease and the simplicity of it, to have our hands in the soil every day, it was just life-changing. So we knew then that that's what we wanted, subconsciously, I think even more so than consciously, because then we ended up coming home. We already had an old donga, like a transportable, a nice one, that we put on my dad's place before we left. So we lived there for a year. And that's where Tyler fell in love with fruit trees. He said he just had this epiphany one day, and he realised he loves fruit, and he realised, I could grow that. It was just it sounds like a really basic thing. And he just became in love with fruit trees. Yeah. So he would just propagate them, grow them fanatically. And then we were planning to go to South America, and we found out we were pregnant with Olive. I cried in grief at the time.
Just because you weren't ready?
Yeah, we just weren't ready. No, we were living in this transportable. We were travelling. We were going to South America. It was a huge sort of shift in our plans. But in retrospect, of course, it was the most amazing thing that could ever have happened. But it was a really big shift. And we ended up, we thought, God, well, we better buy a house. And we had a pretty minimal deposit, and we bought a house. The market was really low, so we could buy a house fairly cheaply, and we ended up on the Gold Coast. So we bought this house not far from the water, actually, and it just slowly our interest in growing food and stuff continued to grow. So we were there for 2 years. We renovated, we had Olive, we were both working really hard, and we just started learning more about making our own tea and growing our own food, and very quickly we started to run out of space. We were like, we actually need more land. We can't do what we want to do here. Tyler started to get more involved in, I guess, permaculture in different ways, and realised, well, we do really need a bit more land, and being so close to the water actually isn't a good thing for growing food. The soil's so sandy. We then went from there and we bought half of my dad's place. We lived there for 2 years. We renovated that, and again, it just really wasn't the right property. At that time we thought, well, the bigger the better. It was 70 acres, that's going to provide us with what we need. But very quickly we realised it really just wasn't the right land and the right space, and even the right community for us to do what we wanted to do. So again, we launched into another renovation while running businesses, and then we had another baby during this time. We both had businesses. I was working with Alex in Violet Grey, and Tyler had a pretty big contract doing insulation. So we were both financially quite abundant and had businesses that were very liquid and very free-flowing. But we had no time. We were so stressed, really not happy. Tyler looked like he had some sort of disease. He was so thin and tired. And neither of us really knew our children. We had a lot of money, but we didn't have anything else.
A life.
Yeah. So we chose life. We both walked away from those businesses and had no idea how we were going to support ourselves here. So it's really been like a 6-year progression from this is amazing to just continually learning, researching. It's been a slow process.
Yeah.
And then getting to the point here. And I guess our vision for what we wanted has continued to evolve along the way as well.
Yeah. Just take us back to your life just before you moved here, because when we were walking around your property before, you said we just decided one day, no, that's it. We're going to leave our jobs and we're going to do this amazing thing. But there must have been a lead up to that, and maybe some tension or some pressure around the lives that you were living, and they just weren't working for you anymore. That instigated that change. Do you want to take us to that moment or those series of moments that led up to that decision?
I think for Tyler, it was general exhaustion and lack of inspiration, definitely. So that was a big factor for him. He wasn't doing something he was passionate about. You know, he could make good money, but that was kind of where it ended. Tyler's mum definitely was a real wake-up call for us. I'd watched them really sacrifice a lot of their life for their retirement, and to be there, she's only in her 50s, so to be faced with the reality of, well, you may never get there. We're going to die, and we may not have as long as we think. And visiting the angel of death is always something I've done every day. I have tried to live my life like that as much as possible. Like every day think, if today was my last day, what regrets would I have? What would I think? I wish I'd done that, or I wish I'd done this. And that's how I've made a lot of my decisions. But it's easy to still get caught up in the fear, you know, of like saving for your retirement or setting yourself up, or, you know, but this is what everyone does and surely this is the only way. And fear still creeps in. But death, the reality of death, was definitely a big factor. And for me, having Jude, like having our second baby, I'd sort of stumbled through with, I'd only had 4 weeks off when she was born. And then Tyler had been actually a stay-at-home dad because I was such a workaholic. And I really hadn't stopped and had much time with her. And she was 3, I had Jude, and suddenly it wasn't so easy. With 2, it wasn't so easy to work and try and manage 2 kids. And I just found that I literally couldn't do it all anymore. Yeah. Violet Grace still had so much potential, but, you know, and Al's so committed to it and does such an amazing job, and she was giving it everything, but I, you know, was also juggling these 2 babies, and then I had this huge internal calling, and that had just been growing and growing and growing in me to simplify. Making money wasn't enough for me anymore. Yeah. Even things like housing, I look out there and I say, well, there's enough housing for everyone to have a house affordably, but we are in this huge housing crisis because, you know, everyone's grab, and we need more property and we need to accumulate. And so then you've got this huge amount of people who can't afford to ever own a house. And our perspective was, well, we need to have investment properties because that's how our children will afford a house. But we're part of the problem. We're actually causing the problem as to why they can't afford a house. So it became no longer about what is in it for us or what is in it for me, but it became more about, well, what is in it for us all, and what is in it for the planet. And we realized the state of the world. And so what we were doing every day, we just had so much guilt over it, because we realized it was no longer enough to just be about us. I think all of the reasons why we shouldn't do it were all related to this ideology that we had forever, but we need to accumulate more money, but we need to have these things, we need more stuff. Where when I really think, when you come to terms with the fact that, but I could die tomorrow and this is our dream, so fuck, what have we got to lose? We can't take it with us anyway. Yeah. You know, you cannot take it with you. You take nothing with you. You know, all you leave behind is the state that you've left the world in. How much have you impacted the world? How much time have you given to the people that you love? How much have you invested in the things that you're passionate about? How much joy have you had in your days? They became what mattered, you know, and that mattered more than stuff or accumulating or identity or businesses or ego. It became greater than us.
And I think the other thing too that is really great that you pointed out there is that it has been a long process. I was talking about this to my Untangled community the other day about how long it actually does take to untangle. And there is the timeline that it takes for you to internally untangle, which is like figuring out what it is that you actually want and what's right for you, and then dealing with all the fear and all of that kind of stuff that comes up. But then there's also the external process of preparing for whatever it is you're trying to untangle from in the external world. And that can take a really long time as well. It's like years in the making sometime.
Yeah, a really long time. Even like the simple things, like coming to terms with the idea that I'm not having a job. You know, like I'd always had a job. I'd always been employed. And then over this time, I actually left my sort of stable job and went into business with my sister. So even taking that jump from being employed to being self-employed, and then even that next step now where I'm more self-employed independently, it's like that's been a process, letting go of this idea of like, so many people say to me, we'd love to do what you're doing, but we can't leave our job. Or where do you get a job? So even that, from going, the only way to survive is to have a job where somebody employs you, to going, well, we can actually generate our own income. We can generate our own life here. That's a really long process. For me, that was a huge amount of untangling that had to happen over many years to get to that point. And for Tyler too. Luckily, actually, Tyler ended up being able to do some of the work that he was doing up here. So it's on a much smaller scale, but he works 2 days a week. It's just a really good balance. So, and because our bills are so much lower, we have the freedom to do that. I've taken the last year off, which has been really nice to spend time with the kids. I've probably pushed away a lot of different business opportunities that have arisen just because I was focused on surviving and really on this project. And I wanted to untangle. I needed to really step away from everything and strip myself back to nothing and then rebuild from the ground up. I felt like I'd been surviving my whole life. My mum's mentally ill and I became her carer when I was 12. So really from that time on, I felt like I had only ever just been keeping my head above water, both like emotionally, physically, financially. You know, it felt like life was a struggle, and that's what I really needed to let go of and make a change. For the first time ever, I've just really taken some time out. But I think the key is keeping your overheads low. The lower your bills, the more freedom you have. And so by choosing to come here, move away from our family and friends, come to a beautiful area, we've chosen freedom and life.
I think that stripping away that you described there is such a core part of that untangling process. It sounds like you've done it relatively willingly. Okay, I want to strip this stuff away so I can start again. And some people resist that and fight that process as things are ripped away from them. What was your perspective and your mindset as that was happening?
I think it was a balance. You know, there was the freedom. I never felt freedom like it. And it was so amazing to wake up every day and say, what do we want to do today? We can do whatever we want to do today. That is such a creative and free-flowing and expansive state to be in. So I had that, but then I also had to let go of all the self-worth stuff. Like, I don't have a job. What am I going to say when people ask me what I do? I'm just a mum. Just a mum. You know, I had all of these beliefs about being just a mum, even though it's really the hardest job that I would ever do. So I think there was just a lot of that letting go of identity and actually knowing that living my life in joy was success. And Elizabeth Gilbert said a really life-changing thing for me just before we decided to make the change to just come, to move to a vacant block and follow our dream. And she said, what if at the end of your life you don't say arrive to so-called heaven? And what if you're not repented for your sins, but instead you're repented for not having enough joy? So what if God, or whoever we want to call him, says, you mean I gave you nature? I gave you health, I gave you wine, I gave you chocolate, I gave you beautiful relationships, I gave you travel, and all you did was work every day and you enjoyed none of it? So what if the definition of success is not how productive was I today, but how much joy did I have in my life today? Coming from a productive powerhouse, my whole definition of my self-worth was how productive I was. I could define that as a life-changing moment. And so that's what got me through. Defining my success as how much joy did I have today. That made the day worthwhile, rather than how productive was I.
Tell me about your relationship with the unknown, because there would be so many things that are uncertain about this particular project.
Yeah.
What's your perspective with the unknown? What's your relationship with uncertainty?
I love it.
Give me more of it.
I love the unknown. Yeah.
Why? Why do you love it?
It's exciting.
Yeah.
You know, you never know what's coming for you.
Yeah.
And I think that the only fear that is around that is when you doubt your ability to cope.
Yeah.
But when you know that you are resilient and whatever's coming at you, you can cope with, the unknown becomes exciting because magical things come out of the unknown. But I think that we, you know, and I have in the past had fear of the unknown and it is a deep core belief that I won't be able to handle what happens. What if something bad happens and I can't cope? But I know I've got this. I know that whatever's coming at me, I can handle. And so bring it. The magic doesn't happen in trying to plan it all out and predict it all and control it all.
Yeah.
You know, the magic is the phone call that you get on a Tuesday afternoon that you didn't expect with an amazing opportunity. You know, that's the magic. And when you're locking yourself in and you've got everything lined out and, you know, predicted and controlled, you don't even pick up the phone.
Yeah. You're just so busy, stuck in the mundane, that you don't notice the magic.
Totally.
Yeah. I know that there's a lot of mums in the untangled community.
Yeah.
And they're probably listening like, how the fuck do you do it, Franny? So do you want to give us a bit of an insight into how the fuck you actually do it?
Yeah. So I think that the key is slowly. There are times when we get so focused on the outcome and we resent the kids in those moments.
Yeah.
And they're really the special moments when we have to step back and we have to remind ourselves that the process is the whole point. You know, our whole life change was based on having more time together. So we involve them in the process and we accept the speed. We practice appreciation for each day together. Hopefully we have time left on the earth and we'll get to this dream point in 10 or 20 years, this dream point of this project that we're doing and where it's going to get to. And if I don't have time left, what time I would have had, I would have wanted to have been with them, experiencing joy and adventure.
Which I think is what you've been talking about this whole time, is that
Totally.
that whole process of just being connected to the joy in every moment. That's just the core intent behind it all.
Definitely. Otherwise, what's it all for?
Mm.
You know how you have that version of yourself that you know you could be?
Mm.
You know, it's like that best version of yourself. And I would always think, if I got diagnosed with a terminal illness, here I am talking about death. I'm actually quite passionate about death, but if I got diagnosed with a terminal illness, I'd have this core regret that's like, I was never the best version of myself. I am now. I am. You know, through time and space and following this and having more joy, I am the best version of myself. And when I am the best version of myself, I'm such a greater version of a mum and of a wife and of a friend and a sister and a daughter. I'm here. I'm actually here. I'm present and I'm not stressed and I'm open and I'm calm and I'm happier and I know my kids. I totally get and honour that the majority of people are in a situation where they have to put their kids into daycare and they have to work and they have to pay the bills. And that is hard, you know, I get that. I was that mum, you know, I had an au pair, a live-in au pair that looked after Olive. And I remember one day she said to me, Olive's just so funny. She's got such a sense of humour. And I agreed with her and I thought to myself, does she? I didn't even know. And I was that mum and I didn't know my kids. And we had to make a change because I wanted to know them. Like not being with them for 50 hours a week. So I would work 10-hour days. I would have an hour with them in the morning, an hour at night. And it's everything else that I had to do on the weekend, juggle them as well. How could I know them? You know, in the way that I wanted to.
Yeah.
I know that's a controversial thing to talk about and I'm probably going to get some hate and I'm really sorry. I'm not trying to be judgmental. I was totally that mum. But it wasn't the relationship that I wanted to have.
Yeah.
I knew that very quickly they were going to be at school and that those moments would be gone.
Yeah.
And there was time left for me, hopefully. You know, hopefully I'm still around and there is time for me when they are at school and when they don't want to know me anymore. And this is just such like a short amount of time that I had with them and I wasn't prioritising it.
Yeah.
You know, I was prioritising my achievements and our financial gain and things that weren't important. There is always a way. Move to a cheaper suburb. simplified. That's what we have done. You know, we have gone to a property that's far less expensive. We live in a tiny house, you know, that most people probably wouldn't even consider living in because it's too small and it's too that and it's too this. But you can do it if you want to. We made the choice to let go of the material things, to let go of the big mortgage, big house, the, you know, the big incomes, the flash cars, and to instead have time. And that's our choice. And if that's not your choice, I totally get that, and that it is no worse or no better. But this was the choice that we decided to make because that's what was important to us.
Yeah. And that was the choice that you were being guided to make before when you talked about, I had this real internal pull to simplify.
Yeah, it was killing me.
Yeah.
Ignoring the inner pull was killing me. And I remember Alex saying this to me. She said, working like in this business is killing you. I'm watching it. You have to do this. And that was a huge gift, to have the support of my sister, like huge impacts on her, for me to walk away from the business and for her to have to do it all by herself. And you know, I mean, she was so supportive and was such an amazing sister before a business partner. Yeah. You know, in her support and her love and acceptance. But she saw that this is what we're meant to be doing. Yeah. This is the life that I'm meant to have. And we just couldn't ignore it anymore.
Yeah. Now that you're here and you're living this alternative, less mainstream life, when you look at the way that the majority of us are living, let's say in Australia, because I know we do have a privileged society. Yeah. So we have a lot more choices than other people and other women have in other cultures. But if we look at this particular society and the way that the majority of us live here versus now what you have here, what are your thoughts on the way that we are doing life as humans?
I can only speak for me and what I observe to be true. But everywhere I look, I see people sacrificing their now for their later, for their retirement. But like I said before, there's a good chance that later will never come. We're all going to die, and some of us sooner than we realise. So what I observe is it seems that we chain ourselves to everything that we should be doing, and then we feel empty and we feel time poor and unfulfilled. So then we try to fill this void by buying more stuff, ultimately just tightening the chains and the have-to list even more. So for us personally, by reducing our debt, we have gotten back our time, our choices, our freedom, and that is what I see to be the secret of our happiness.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that one. After we finished recording this interview, Franny explained to me the costs associated with this style of living, and I was actually shocked to realise how affordable it can be if it's done in the right way. So if you're interested, Franny has generously provided facts and figures of the costs to create and live this kind of lifestyle. You can find this information over in the show notes at alanahelbig.com/untangled34.